right people come together at the right moment, when they care almost as much about winning as they do about each other, they can become the best of the best.
Welcome to the best soccer show. The best soccer show in the whole world.
Here we go. It's the best soccer show. Jason Davis. Jared Dubois. Jared Dubois in the building.
Say it again for the people in the back.
What a shock and surprise and a good one. Jared is here. We've done this relatively recently. The new year.
I think I was on the last one. I don't think you've done one since because we had Christmas and New Year kind of break, Puerto Rico in there.
Mm-hmm. We did, yes. I did one with you from Puerto Rico.
My state caught fire, all sorts of things.
Yeah, you know. your state caught fire. That is absolutely. It snowed 10 inches in at my dad's house in Pensacola, Florida. That happened too. What?
It's cats and dogs laying together, mass hysteria.
Mass hysteria.
I don't recognize this world anymore. That's what it comes down to.
Let's not get started on some of that. It has been a hectic week in the household over here. Not and we don't have this. We had a little bit of snow. Snowed while I was in Puerto Rico. Snowed a little bit when I came back.
It snowed in Puerto Rico while you were there?
No. While I was in Puerto Rico, it snowed at my house in Virginia.
Oh, gotcha.
Then I came back, and then it snowed a little bit more, but not much. They thought it was going to be more, but then it went down to 12 degrees. What would happen to Jared Dubois' head if it was 12 degrees outside?
I'm pretty sure most of this pump would just like snap off in a stiff breeze.
You have to be careful though. Don't lick any telephone poles.
Yeah, the wrong things in my body would be hard.
That sounds like something you'd have to deal with. Absolutely. I don't have, unfortunately.
Wait, do you guys have relations in the cold? Is that something that do you guys pull that off all right?
Okay, I just played the J Rodius. I heard it. We apparently have technical difficulties where my computers are not pushing the audio like they're supposed to today. Yeah. So maybe I should do it the other way around.
Oh no, I heard the music, but that you did that through StreamYard. Yeah.
You deserve this.
Oh,
J Rodius.
That's the one we do, right? That's the one we do.
I tell you, I started watching Archer again the other day, just like the old episode. Just I was like, oh, I'm gonna watch some Archer, and I was like, I'll stand by the fact that blimp episode is one of the greatest pieces of comedic television ever put on. It's so good.
I have to I do remember
the rigid
that
airship
one, yeah.
versus the blimp. He's like, the whole thing's gonna catch on fire.
Pretty good. Yeah, I do that. I do remember that now. Pretty good.
Great one.
All right. We are going to work on getting some very important audio for our purposes this evening, which again, I have, some issues here with my normal setup, and we want to play. Let's just say it. Let's just play. I mean, it's like it was made for us. It's like Mauricio Pochettino decided to give us a late Christmas present or a Three Kings present, since we're a lot closer to Three Kings than we are to Christmas.
No idea what that is.
That's the celebration of the Magi arriving to give the gifts to Jesus.
Like a Lord of the Rings thing?
Frankincense, what is it? Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. You don't know about this?
I know about those three things, but I thought Magi were like magic carriers and like.
No, that's what they're called. They're called the Magi.
Oh, okay.
It's a huge thing in Puerto Rico. It's like a whole celebration.
Oh, is this where you gotta be careful when you bite the bread because you might bite on the little freaking figure that's inside it?
I'm not aware of that tradition. I don't know exactly.
Thing,
okay, that might be a Mexican thing. In Puerto Rico, you put the little box, the little cajita, with the pasto, which is, or the yerba, the grass, the hay, the food for the camels, right? You know how you put, like, how, I know, again, I don't know exactly what goes on in the Dubois household. I don't know. You guys put the tree up and
a goat,
Yeah, all that heathen stuff.
All
those pagan, not pagan rituals, because you don't believe there is a higher power. So pagans believe a higher power.
These days, I consider myself a naturalist.
I don't know what that is.
We don't have time.
What is that? You get naked.
I believe in all the natural, forces of the universe, gravity, light, all these things, and the biggest thing about it is that, like the scientific method, my beliefs and answers to things and why things are the way they are open to change as we find out more information about the universe. I don't feel like they have to have a rigid answer to everything right now.
I see.
As we learn more about the universe, the definitions and answers change.
So you're like a nihilist. You believe in nothing. Is that what you're telling me?
No, I believe in all the forces that guide this universe.
But if you believe in everything, you believe in nothing. If you believe in everything's possible, then you have nothing specific. You believe in nothing.
I believe that I have faith in the things that we have so far, but I'm open to I'm humble enough to realize that I don't know everything about this universe, and I'm okay with that.
I see. Okay. All right.
If anyone said anything about me ever, it's that I'm humble.
That's right. The thing I know about Jerry Dubois is that he's a very humble individual. But of course I'm talking about big balls, right? I'm talking right here on this program about big balls. And
us.
You and I have been known to talk about balls, and not just the kind that you kick in the match to score the goals and do all those things, right? You and I have been known to talk about things that maybe are not normally discussed on the average American soccer podcast. Like,
sure.
We have our fun. We have our fun around here. That's why this exists.
I ain't afraid of no balls.
That exists for that exact reason, right? So,
yeah.
And Mauricio Pochettino, again, handed us on a platter after, and we have to thank Diego Luna. And not only will we talk about his performance and what you think about his future with the U.S. men's national team, because now he is on a path. Whether or not that path opens up for him to have a major role in this team, and I mean the first team, the A team, at any point in the near future, I don't know. I still think there are some things about Diego Luna that may keep him from reaching that level. But can you remember a more entertaining, a more fun experience during a January camp than the one we just had?
Do you mean the 180 minutes, or do you mean the soundbite of Pochettino afterwards?
I mean everything. I mean the vibes of it going in.
Camp Cupcake notoriously is lackluster, sloppy, choppy, not very good opponents. That part might still be a little bit true. Costa Rica, we had a number of their regular team players. But in the past, it hasn't been something that you felt was like must tune in TV, even though this is probably your favorite team. I would equate it to like an MLS preseason, like, yeah, you're aware of what the scores end up being, but you're not really you're not going to make time to make sure you watch it live. I enjoy this. And I think one of the reasons I enjoyed it most, and this is, I think, the theme of what Pochettino is going to be over the course of now between the World Cup. He really allows the players to express who they are on the field, whether that is Anelli tracking down balls and getting into passing lanes and breaking stuff up, or it's Diego Luna threading balls, Brian Gutierrez trying to take a guy on, or even where he makes some things that are probably more his decision, like in the second game, playing Miles Robinson on the right-hand side. But what that really means is that he was going to be in a 3-back situation most of the time. And you saw the same template in DJ Jazzy Jones playing that Anthony Robinson midfield left back role that we saw in one of those games earlier. You see that there's hints of connectivity and themes of what he's doing, but at the same time, the players look completely untethered. Other than the information he's given them is you never stop running. Like that's really
right.
Like that's the only thing I see out there that seems like, wow, he has instilled the fact that this is a frenetic energy team, and however you find your way to dance upon that stage that he has given you is fine, as long as you keep that bit of choreography.
Yeah, I think it's you and I have been through a couple of these. How many Camp Cupcakes have we lived through in our lifetimes?
All of them.
We've been around for every single one. Like it started.
Arena started it.
Was it Bruce
Arena
that started
Bradley?
it?
Is Arena or Bradley?
One of those. It was that transition from Bruce in 2002 and 2006 to Bob going into 2010 when I think this really started. And every single time, I mean, certainly in the beginning, it was, this is going to be an opportunity to see players who will be in the national team in the future. Maybe not a lot of them, but some of them.
Yeah.
Right. And it was this thing about like, oh, this is, we knew it was never going to be the best possible team, but there would be guys that you could say, this is an up and coming player that is going to be part of our national
I think
team
one of the
picture.
cool things about this camp, which gave it a little bit more excitement or energy, is that in the past, in this camp, there is no name ending in Roldan, Morris. I mean, even going back to Wondolowski, like there was guys who were just mainstays of Camp Cupcake that just didn't excite the fan base because they were known quantities, and it was unlikely to get to play a large role.
There are some of those. Now, part of it is that there's just a dearth of center backs.
But it's a new wave of it.
Yeah, I guess. Okay. But I mean, like, but my point was, what I was going to say is that I'm not going to look at these two games and these 180 minutes and the goals by Aubameyang and the play of Diego Luna, especially in the second game. And I don't know, Miljevic, what are we talking about there? He's like as a chaos agent in the middle of the field. I'm not going to look at any of these performances. You mentioned Dinelli, right? Nice player, 25 years old.
I think probably the player of the tournament for me.
Okay, player of the set. I don't think I'm looking at them and going, oh, you know what? That guy. That's the one I'm thinking about for 26. So I really think he's got a place. I'm not doing with that.
Because even Anelli, like Adams, no way. He's not displacing Adams.
Well, it's not. But it's not even that I don't think it's possible that an Anelli or a Luna or a Agyemang or whoever, Agyemang, I'm gonna keep doing that. We're all doing it. We're all doing it. It's not even that I don't think it's possible they might get into the A squad picture at some point on some level. It's that I just don't know enough, and there's no reason for me to extrapolate performances in this camp to that. What I can do is watch how they played. Like, to your point about the freedom and the mentality and the edge that they showed, what I can do is pick things out that I think are part of Pochettino's ideas or Pochettino's culture that will serve the entire program. But the A team is what I care about, right? When Pulisic is there, and McKennie is there, and Adams is there, and Pepe is there, that's who I want to see this same sort of edge and mentality. And I mean, when's the last? Like, I guess we had Adams hit a hammer against Mexico a while back, but we just haven't had guys that did what Jack McGlynn did in that first. Where's that guy?
I think we usually get one about every World Cup cycle. If you get back Benny Feilhaber in the Gold Cup years ago, Michael Bradley at Mexico in Azteca, like there's not many and it's not often, but they tend to be bangers when they come around. But here's the thing: you're not expecting Adams to ever do that again in his career. Jack McGlynn. Yes, you probably do expect that, and that's something that this team hasn't had as a threat in quite some time. I can't remember last time.
Jack McGlynn thinks he's Kobe with that left foot. He thinks he should be able to take a shot anytime he feels like.
Yeah, I'm going to pour some salt on the Jack McGlynn stuff. I don't think he played well most of the time he was on the field. Fine. I think he had moments where he showed who he could be and had really cool moments here and there. If you watch the first 20 minutes of that first game, it's rough for Jack McGlynn.
Yeah.
By the way, it's not great.
If we are talking about absolute bangers for the national team, Jermaine Jones in Brazil is the best World Cup goal that America's ever scored. Yeah. That's the best World Cup goal the United States has ever scored. I'm not saying team goal. It's just the best goal, period. I have the whole interview of our man Mauricio Pochettino talking to TNT afterwards. Now, it is long.
We're so happy to be joined by Mauricio.
Okay, so this is the whole 6-minute interview.
Let me ask you a question first. How many people on that behind that desk does he know the first names of?
That's a good question. I would say
you don't have to say who, but just give me a number. There's 4 people behind that desk with him. How many people does he know the names of?
None. I think it might be none.
I'm going to say 2. I think he'll know who Beasley is. I mean, he was in Europe around times. Not that they ever really passed over each other, but. Also played in World Cups.
Pochettino would have been playing in Spain.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that they were playing. He's been to 3-4 World Cups, Beasley. So I think he's got a little bit of international recognition for the Americans. Dunny has called and done enough of these things of his first 5 games that I think he's probably in there.
Well, I mean, Beasley is the biggest name player from this group. I mean,
and he doesn't know Kyle Martinez only because Kyle's hair and facial hair change every couple of weeks, so you can't keep up with what he looks like at any given time.
That might be the thing. All right, I have skipped ahead. I want to get to the Diego Luna part. There's a lot of good stuff in here, and if you want to go back and look at what Poch said, we can do that. But I believe I've gotten to the right place. Let me make sure. I think I've got it to the right place in this video where he talks about Diego Luna, and obviously
to find out.
What happened is Diego Luna, gets the nose injury, broken nose. They shove gauze. They reset it. They shove gauze up his nose, and then he goes back and plays and sets up the goal from Brian White. I think. Let me see if I got this right.
Bleeding from the nose, and they're resetting his nose. What did he say to you about wanting to stay in the game? What did you say to him?
I was very surprised because was broke the nose.
Yeah, nose, yeah.
Nose. I was like, but I didn't want to say nothing, too much drama, because was bleeding.
You don't want to scare him.
No, I wanted to scare. But he said, "How you feel?" I said, "No, I can't. Please, coach, let me to keep playing because at least after the half time I go out. Doctor, give me the okay."
Big personality.
Yes.
Yeah.
I said, the doctor said, yeah, okay, you go in. And the first action, assist, and we score. I said, big balls.
There it
is. my favorite part, the reason I want DeMarcus Beasley on more of these, because play it another 10 seconds. Beasley laughs like one of us would laugh in that moment.
Okay, I'd like to come
body.
back. Let's see. Here it is.
We score. I say, big balls. Sorry. No, but it's true. Because
I love that DeMarcus Beasley is just one of us getting behind that.
No. Here's what I want to know. Now, I've never been blessed enough to do a stand-up table interview of a national team coach after game or anybody. Like, I haven't been in this position, and obviously Orlando, stunningly, was cold. That's why they're all dressed like that, because Florida got the snow and they're cold. Is it like appropriate? And I got this mic because I can't move it. Is it appropriate to be like cackling into the mic with the mic right here, or should you be like maybe like dropping the mic a bit to cackle?
I don't care. I enjoyed every moment of it. Do whatever they're gonna do. By the way, shout out to Morgan, who says she's in the background in a brown jacket and a white headband somewhere. She says she can see herself out there. She was out there working that event. So
trying to spot my friend.
I'm not sure at what point it was, but I can't see it right now. It might not be in this shot right here. But
yeah.
But listen, man, I listen. Here's another reason why I just like Pochettino. Like, the dude he's himself, whether that means what he's going to demand of the players, but also you get the feeling like you would never see that human element in most of the coaches. If you think about Bob Bradley, Bruce Arena, Jurgen Klinsmann, Greg Berhalter, maybe Bruce Arena. No. Bruce Arena does something like that, but he would be like that motherfucker has big balls. Like
he would say he would do a deadpan or something, and it wouldn't be that. Well, I mean, part of this is the second language thing. Yeah. It's Pochettino going nose, and which is about pronunciation.
What he's really thinking to say is like bolas.
I mean, I was talking about this today on the radio show. Did you know that I have a radio show?
Oh, no kidding. Really?
Sometimes? Yeah.
Like UHF or VHF? Or like what? Ham?
What is that?
WNBC. WNBC.
Yeah. I get out a ham radio and I just talk into it about soccer. It's just an amazing thing. Let's
Across
just do
the whole world, I hear that with the right repeaters.
Nobody pays me. I don't. There's no company backing me. There's no ad. It's just me talking to a microphone about the national team to people who are like on top of mountains in Tibet and stuff like that. It's amazing. What I was going to say is that Pochettino as this character, Pochettino as a guy who brings obviously pedigree because of his coaching career, but also being Argentine and that element, and the second language thing. And so when he says big balls, he's translating, right? But I don't know what the phrase is in Argentina. There could be some like idiom that I don't know, that like I can't think of a good English idiom that doesn't mean what it sounds like, but it could be something like that. It could be like that, right?
I think at the end of the day, that interaction is the kind of thing that the guys are getting in the locker room, where they're getting. It's almost like, oh man, I want to say this way, but like, there's that one teacher everyone had who demanded a lot of you, but also knew how to get the best out of you, and I feel like that's Pochettino's kind of style. I want to go back to something I said earlier, and I'm gonna tweak what I said slightly. When I was talking before about like the music and the choreography of the guys, what I really think is happening is that I think Pochettino chooses the tempo, like the song, the tempo, but he allows every player to decide how they want to dance to the music. Like that's how I see it with him. Where it's like, this is the song we're gonna do, but whereas Berhalter was probably telling them, here you're doing this step, then this step, then this step, then a twirl, then a dip. And like it was all trying to be, you're trying to figure out 90 minutes of improvisation by giving it too much structure. Whereas Pochettino's like, you guys are going to decide how to dance this. All I'm going to tell you is how you have to do it in a 4-beat tempo.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't apply to this group. And I think it's interesting because I think you could make a reasonable argument, and I have seen people say this, that, Berhalter was kind of the right guy for the moment with that particular team during that first cycle, right? A team that really was kind of starting over, how we had missed the World Cup. We needed somebody who was going to apply a structure. And now that Pochettino has picked up where Berhalter left off, what he's doing is, all right, we have this basic structure, but we're going to play way freer within it, right? I mean, because nothing is black and white. There's all shades of gray here. Like, whatever Berhalter did, it didn't get thrown in the garbage. It's just not being used the same way. Pochettino has his own approach to it. And it's not to say that if Berhalter didn't do what he did, then Pochettino wouldn't be having this success. It's to say that Pochettino's a practical guy. He's not stupid. He's not going to be like, we're going to start over from zero and nothing that you learned before.
And the things
applies.
you and I both talked about and we're worried about is, could a club coach do the international team? And I think you've seen with him already, again, I'm going to give you this basic framework and you're going to, and that framework can be taken from camp to camp to camp to whatever players you're bringing in, because now they all know what the expectation is coming in. I want this. Outside of that, you decide. And that is a very easy thing to take at the international level. Whereas Berhalter, again, that was a club coach. He was trying to do a club coach's job at an international paycheck.
Yeah, and maybe it was unnecessary. And I do think it got entirely too granular, too specific, too, again, it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy that you end up squeezing too hard, right? Because what is a coach going to do? Like, work, and then like, yeah, we're good. No, and especially a coach as inexperienced at that level as Berhalter was. He doesn't go like, oh, yeah, we can just stop working and you guys figure it out now. You know the basics. Now go out and play the game and win. He doesn't have that confidence. He doesn't have that experience. He doesn't know if his guys can do it. He doesn't know if that's the right approach. So what does he do? He keeps working. He keeps adding new wrinkles. He keeps, all right, we're going to do it this way, this half space, and we're going to do this kind of cross. And instead of that, Pochettino, who has a lot more, this is why you hire a guy with pedigree. So why you hire a guy who's managed at the Premier League level and been to a Champions League final and done all these things, because he knows when it's okay to back off. Like, he knows that it's okay to shift down instead of up, right? Like, it's not necessary to squeeze so hard. And I think this particular camp is a great example. I don't think a lot of these guys arrived. Now, there's Zimmerman and Robinson and Ream and a handful. But I don't think a lot of these guys like understood from experience, because they didn't have it, how the national team likes to play, whether it's Pochettino or Berhalter. They hadn't been here. So what Pochettino did was say, all right, this is the basic way. And in this case, we're not going to throw more at you. Like, what are you going to do with it? You can't do anything with that. And this is an opportunity. Go ahead.
I think it goes back to how Greg Berhalter for years, remember, like, you would watch the videos of his meetings with the guys in the conference rooms at the beginning of camps, and he would always start off with a slideshow. His theme, his motto was change the way the world perceives American soccer.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. Big thing. Whereas Pochettino, his motto so far that he's been telling everybody, he's like, reinstalling American winning mentality. Like, that is so much easier to execute than changing the way the world thinks of you.
Well, yeah.
Just saying, like, hey, every American player, every American sports fan grows up with something already innate within us that we are indoctrinated from birth, is that we go to win. And so all he's doing is saying, I'm tapping into that. We may come short. We're not going to talk about that, but I'm going to tap into that very American thing.
But this is why his particular background is the perfect fit for this. Because if there's anything you know about Argentines, about their team, about the way that they play, they may produce Maradona, and they may produce Messi, and they may produce incredibly technically gifted players, but that's not why they win.
Yeah.
They win because they will fight and claw and kick and punch and do whatever it takes to win the game. They don't care if it's 1-0. They just want to win the game. So what you've got here, and I don't blame Berhalter too much for this, because again, I think it's the natural inferiority complex.
I think it's what U.S. Soccer wanted him to do, to be fair.
Sure, but you're right. It's too big of a thing, but it also comes from this innate thing that we have as Americans when it comes to sport. We have to prove something all the time. It's not enough to win the game. We have to win the game in this incredibly impressive manner of play. Like we care so much about whether the coach on the other team says, "Oh, you play good football," when all that should matter is whether you win the game. And there may be an argument that if you don't play a certain type of good football, you can't win a World Cup. And obviously that's the end goal. The end goal is to win the Men's World Cup. And if you don't play, if you don't mature as a soccer nation, if you don't play a more intricate style or a more mature style, whatever that word is I'm looking for, then you won't be able to do it. But you can't ever get to that point of having the confidence to maybe do it until you win the games, until you go to a World Cup. And it's not like, well, if you make the round of 16, that'll be a nice World Cup that we just had there. Oh, we lost in the round of 16. Oh, shucks, let's go back at it. And but you know what? That coach said we played some nice football. Hey, that's good. Let's write about that. No, screw that. Win the stupid game. So Pochettino knows it's not that the United States doesn't have decent players. Right, the players, I'm not saying that they're world-class across the board, but they're better than their collective performance to this point. So here's the deal. Let's reinstall what Argentines care about most and what Americans typically care about most.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you a question then. We are 6 games into Pochettino's reign now, 5-1. Is this a good time to look and say, can we draw some specific things about Pochettino? Is the sample size finally big enough? Because we've said some things already, in particular me. I've drawn some conclusions about Pochettino, his style, and what he's going to do based on these 6 games. 6 games, very different qualities of players and camps. And even in the one loss against Mexico, let a bunch of players go home. So is this sample size big enough to start drawing conclusions from yet?
No, I mean, not in the sense that like, I can predict how they're going to play on a given day. I don't think so. I mean, I think, again, the same sort of principles that Berhalter, I mean, it's structure. It's not even really principles, right? It's not, and again, it's not programming them. It's not like, okay, we play through this center back and we check to this midfielder and we play wide here and then we play into the channel and then we get an overlap and now we get a cross, right? Because that was the programming that Berhalter was installing.
It was the Pythagorean theorem of playing soccer.
Yeah, it was like ping, 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 and then we score a goal. And he always, that was kind of always the message. Like, if we do these things, ping, 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 we can score a goal.
I haven't heard the word verticality once.
Let's not talk about verticality.
Okay.
Verticality is dead. We killed it. It's dead. It's in a bog somewhere. It's rotting right now. They have no idea where to find it. Verticality. I think, you will use what the game gives you, right? I think that's what Pochettino's basic mentality is. You coach the game you're in. You coach to the team you're playing, or you plan for the team you're playing. Now, you may have an idea going in that we would like to do these things, and you may tell players, like, because you don't want to overload them. So you say, they will give you space here and here. We've seen it on tape. We know that you'll get space here and here. So just be looking for that space. But let's say the team responds, or they go, hey, we had a weakness here, and we're going to add another body to midfield, and we're going to close down that space. The players can't go, well, let's keep hitting that space that he said was going to be there, because it's not there anymore.
Because coaches adapt. Players adapt.
Players adapt. Coaches adapt.
Which I think is why I think so often Berhalter's teams, the first 15 minutes, usually looked really good. I feel like the guys routinely came out with a lot of confidence, really, really good, and then it would just go away. And I couldn't figure out for a long time why it would go away, but I think that's what you're talking about, is that the other team starts adjusting to what's working for you. And I don't know that Berhalter until halftime or something like that would ever be able to make those adjustments, because we would say all the time, he'd be behind, and then second half we would somehow get back into games. And I think he would need those stops where the team doesn't know how to adjust. You got to give them into the locker room, give them very specific direction on what to do. And I don't think that's happening now.
No, but I also think that a lot of that came down to the game changing in the second half in ways that were then less predictable, right? So we had a plan, we applied it, it didn't work, we did this, we had all the energy, we couldn't make it count. In the second half, that's when legs start to go. That's when spaces appear that weren't there before. That's when, obviously the other team is trying to do things too. And maybe they're less aggressive in the second half. Maybe they're more aggressive in the second half because they're chasing. Like, those things happen. And, I think that a lot of times it came down to players rather than Berhalter responding to what the game was giving the United States in those situations. Does that make sense? I mean, again,
I understand. I understand what you're saying, and I think there's just a simplicity to the way Pochettino's asking to play. I think so often over these two games, especially these two games, I was very impressed with the movement of the team. The pass, move, develop triangles, very simple stuff. The stuff you're always taught to do that seems way easier than it actually is. But the off-the-ball movement from the player who just gave the ball away, it was so consistent in the drive and the movement. It was very rare you had a guy sitting, looking at five guys in front of him and figuring out what to do. There's so much movement. And, even when you think about the Brian White goal and the Diego Luna pass, that's coming from Brian White way out on the wing, running a channel. He's not sitting on the 9 spot, waiting to get it with his back to goal. They're creating more movement in between the lines. And I think even a Camp Cupcake roster of guys who have never been together before were able to 70 to 85% execute the plan impressively.
Yeah, again, I'm not going to overrate what that was last night against Costa Rica. Not going to make it into this big, huge success story. But and again, let's just make it about Luna in particular, right? Because Luna is a player you can't program.
Yeah,
like Luna is a player you can't say, this is what you're going to do today, Diego. You have to do this, and if you don't do this, that's not. Well, I'm going to take you out.
Balls don't care, man. Balls don't care.
No, big balls don't care.
You got to let them swing.
By the way, I'm trying to learn here, so I went looking to figure out if there was a word that we didn't know that maybe we could little cultural exchange here. So this is this website tells me these are the top 10 Argentinian slang words that we need to know, and number 4 on the list is boludo. Boludo, B-O-L-U-D-O, boludo.
And that's for a single ball, or is that for both?
So listen, it says boludo is a former insult that has been misused so much that it becomes something else. The origin of the word, that can be used as an adjective or a noun, lies in the term bolas. And yes, someone boludo is someone with big balls. If you are boludo, that's an adjective.
He's ballsy.
Situation.
Ballsy.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
If it's an adjective, is it an adjective or a noun? If it's an adjective, they'd be ballsy.
Yes, right. Like
Pelado. By the way, for all the people from South America, I hope we're not going to choose a word that really is inappropriate at some point. We're just going off the internet.
Probably will. Right? I mean, my Spanish is
Puerto Rican. Boludo, number 3 on the list. What's number 3?
Boludo. So I was going to compare it to pelado. Pelado is like bald, right? So like Matias Almeida was a pelado because he was bald. And I think boludo is like that. And I don't know if he would have. I don't know if that's the word Poch would have used if he was doing.
So like a shaved ball.
a
manscaped ball.
Bola pelada would be a bear.
So
ball.
Like Bruce Willis in action movies, a bald dude that's ballsy.
Sure, that works. Yeah, yeah. Bruce Willis fits. I think he fits boludo if that's what if we're going to start using it. Yeah, and again, we're a couple of white guys. Don't know anything about anything. Yeah, okay. Let's. So Diego Luna, the job he did last night, and I'm glad that he got the start and the opportunity. I would have liked to have seen it against Venezuela as well, but I guess
I would
there was
like to
a plan.
See it for 90 minutes. I mean, I feel that we got 45 out of it.
Right, 45 because of the broken nose. I mean, that grit, that determination, that's very symbolic.
But I think it's almost like, remember Costanza and Seinfeld? Like he would say a funny joke and walk out of the room at work because it's like you got to leave him on a high.
That's what he did. More, yeah.
He left him on a. How is he going to do anything in the next 45 minutes that's going to give him more cash with Pochettino and the fan base than what he did then?
I wanted to point out something that I guess they talked about on TNT, and then Charlie Bone put on his Blue Sky clip of this. Just before the pass that leads to the Brian White goal, Diego Luna has a little pocket of space in midfield between the lines for Costa Rica, and I want to say I think it's Tim Ream who's bringing the ball up, right? And maybe he plays out to DeJuan Jones, and Diego Luna makes a break like he's trying to run in behind that midfield line for Costa Rica and puts his arm up as is to say, play me ahead, right? Play me behind. Then he checks back. Then he just stops, right? And this is what I loved about this is this stuff happens all the time. It's just not always as obvious as it was because this is a moment that leads to a goal. So Diego Luna puts his arm up. DeJuan Jones, he's basically telling him, like, play it in front of me. The Costa Rican right back checks back to guard against Luna trying to get in behind. And by the way, is Diego Luna going to beat anybody in a foot race? There's a fire hydrant running at you. He's not going to beat you in a foot race. He has to outthink him. So he makes this feint. DeJuan Jones plays to Luna's feet. He now has 10 yards, 15 yards of space in front of him to scan the field, see the run, the perfectly timed run from Brian White. And let's give him credit, too, Brian White, for getting that ball out of his feet and scoring the way that he did, because that's not easy from that.
Yeah. And I think there's only maybe 5 guys or so in MLS that can make that pass, and it's Luna, Messi, Puig, and a couple other guys. Man, there's not many guys that can make that pass.
Everybody sees it. Everybody sees it.
It's
the weight of the pass, right, and the placement, right? Because if you take him too wide, there's no shot.
For sure. Right? And good on Brian White. That still was an easy shot. It was a very, very tough shot.
The typical MLS sequence that looks like that ends up with the forward having to check and play back to goal because the ball's not where he needs it to be to get this shot off.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to point that out because I love that particular moment and that illustration of Diego Luna outthinking the opponent.
What do you think of Caden Clark over these 2 games?
Caden Clark is. I know he's got talent. Obviously, the goal was very nice. Like I know he's got a skill set, but I don't. I think it's always about consistency, right? It's always about being involved. I hope not, but yeah. And you know what? Am I wrong about this, or did like a sports hernia completely upend his trajectory? Like, wasn't that?
I don't remember what it was. Was it right before he went to?
Or it wasn't sports hernia. Salford? It was like an appendectomy. Maybe the chat knows.
Frankfurt? Where did he go?
He went to Leipzig.
He went to Leipzig. One of the Red Bulls. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, he went to Leipzig, and I think he then had.
I think something happened right before he went.
Right before he went, he had an appendectomy in June 2021. He missed a month.
Yeah,
and then he ended up going to Leipzig.
Unfortunately, part of it, So let me ask you a question then. So, leaving this cupcake as it starts being in our rearview mirror, what are the 4 players that you think move forward with the most stock up? And let's leave Tim Ream out of this. Tim Ream already considered a part of the full national team. I don't think that's someone. So I'm talking of the newer players.
No, I would say, the guys with fewer than 5 caps or something like that's the group that we're talking about, right? Because there's no reason, I don't think Zimmerman's a World Cup player, but he's going to fill the numbers in when you've got a camp like this. And
he's a known quantity.
Jalen Neal's not here, right? And that, it's not going to, there aren't any young center back. I mean, Jackson Reagan wasn't released by Seattle. I think he would have played in these games, Jackson Reagan, if he was available, but he wasn't. I do think there's still, he's the youngest player in this group. And maybe I'm biased towards youth this way. I like him young. So Benjamin Kromaski is 19 years old. And I'm not saying that he's ready for anything, but he has room to grow. Right? So I would say Kromaski is one of them.
I think so, but I don't know if this cycle is his cycle. I think there's other players that I think have more potential to help this cycle. I think he's one for the future still. I think what he does, unfortunately, flies way under the radar for most people watching the game. Yeah. And most of his job is done through positioning. And I think that a lot of people don't pick up on that. I think at one point, one of the announcers talked about it at one time where he was stopping a counterattack coming the other way where he didn't get a touch on the ball. but just his presence, the way he positioned himself was quite good. And I think Pochettino, obviously, there's that Argentine connection there. He's going to appreciate that. But for me, I think Brett Kremasky's not on my list only because I'm trying to make a list I think will be good for this coming. I'll give you one.
You want to list.
This is what just my basis of how I'm thinking about it. However you about it is, I think it's fine, and I think you can make the argument for Kremasky. But for me, I would say Anelli. I already talked about him. I think when you think about Luca De La Torre coming back, when you think about Johnny Cardoso falling off some this season so far, I think we talked about there's just a young up and coming guy that is under Pablo Mastroeni every single day. The guy who the same thing when like Tyler Adams was playing under Chris Armas. There's just something about when those guys get those guys that are like their type of player. I think it works really well. And I think there's something there. And I think it's a very deep depth piece. I don't think he is going to be starting or anything like that, but I like what he's showing. And I think there's an opportunity to potentially play a role going towards the World Cup. Because you think about the injuries with that position and for the U.S.
No, I do think the De La Torre factor here is interesting. I mean, I don't know that De La Torre drops completely out of the picture because he's moving to Major League Soccer, because it's better if he plays, and he hasn't been playing, right? If it wasn't working at Celta Vigo anymore, then he needed to play games, and maybe there was something else, but whatever. I guess this makes sense.
Give me another one.
Another player in that pool, in that particular area of the field?
You must pick like 4, so we overlap.
Well, I also wanted to mention Johnny Cardoso. Like Johnny Cardoso, I think I don't know that I'd say that he's dropped off. Like I don't know that I would call it that at this point. And because of the transfers rumors that swirl around him, it's really hard to know how much of that might be affecting him or what his immediate future might be. But I do think he's going to end up moving in the summer. And it's going to be a higher level, and we're going to get a real shot to understand if he's a national team player.
But my thing with Cardoso, even when he got his shot in the summer with Adams out, I don't think he shined. I don't think he looked at the level. I think at the club level, for some reason, he's able to do that. But when he gets his chance with the U.S. national team, I don't think he takes full advantage of him. So that's maybe why I'm feeling like there's a bit of a drop there because he can't see at the national team.
It's also it's also worth pointing out. So you're talking about Anelli being a destroyer, right? We're talking about a destroyer kind of player, which is what Tyler is. Tyler's passing leaves a lot to be desired. He can occasionally do something. You'd like a player that maybe is a destroyer. Doesn't have to be Tyler Adams level, but is also maybe a better passer. Johnny doesn't bring a lot going forward. Luca Del Torre does, but I think defensively he leaves a lot to be desired.
Agreed.
You can throw a Gianluca Busio into this mix, I guess, if you really want to. Not exactly a destroyer, but a good passer from deep, those kind of things. And it has played higher up the field, too, for the national team. That is a thing that's happened with Gianluca Busio. All right, so, Kremasky. I like Anelli, too. We'll overlap on Anelli. Yeah, I mean, Luna, I do think there's something. Like, I don't know what his... Yeah. Like, so remember when it was, we got to get Alejandro Zendejas into this team. Like, we got to get him into this team because we need that X factor. We need that creative player. We need that spark. He's the bench guy. He's the guy you break glass in case of emergency to come in and break somebody's ankles and do something. Diego Luna can do that. It's a different position. It's a different approach.
One's wide, one's the center,
But I think Diego Luna is the guy I think is better suited for that role than Zendejas, who has had a great season in Mexico. Like it's not about necessarily club play. It's just sort of about what they can do for you when you need them.
Yeah, I would think Diego Luna too, and I'm going to say for a slightly different reason is that Gio Reyna's not playing consistently, often injured. And when you think about the way that Gio Reyna's played best in that high midfield, drawn forward, however you want to get that pocket right there that you want someone to sit. Now, Pulisic has shown the ability to do that with AC Milan and even a little bit at the national team level. So you do have that depth right there too. But if you think of a 1-for-1, a 1A, 1B, where there's a drop-off, but very similar, I think Diego Luna fits more into that Gio Reyna spot in there than maybe any other player in the team.
Okay. I mean...
in terms of like the way they choose to play that position.
Well, you were hoping that Tillman was going to be that guy.
I'm color me unimpressed. Okay, again, Cardoso
with the
Tillman with PSV, killer. Every time he puts on a red, white, and blue jersey, it melts him. Like he's a Timothy Chandler emotionally. I don't know. It's like the American shirt is made of kryptonite.
Could be. He just got hurt too, so that doesn't. I mean, I don't know that necessarily means anything for March, but he did get hurt.
Yeah.
So there's that.
My last one, I'll take Agyemang. Agyemang. I can't say it. I need to work harder on it. And for me, I saw someone today. I think it was Max Bredos maybe said that. So I apologize if I'm wrong, saying that he probably can't develop more technically. I don't know that I agree with that because he was saying more. The point is. But what he has, the athleticism, the ability to run downhill, all that kind of size, like that may be enough, even if he doesn't develop technically. But I think that maybe it's a little hard done on that. He's just getting into the professional environment now. So to say that he can't develop anymore, I don't know, but I see where he's coming from when he says that.
Okay. Shout out to JTT who's helping us out.
JTT's up in here?
JTT is in the building. Oh my God, it's JTT. OMFE and PG-13. It's JTT. All right. I'm going to go with that too. I mean, how can I not?
He's going to have a better team around him this year in Charlotte than he had last year. We'll get to see he'll have better service this year than he did last year.
What do you think Dean Smith does with Wilfried Zaha?
That's the problem, though, is Dean Smith.
You think Dean Smith the problem?
Oh no, I apologize. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the guy that won who's the guy that won with Colorado Rapids?
Gary Smith? Oh, Gary Smith got fired.
In my head, that's what I thought when he said it. I apologize.
Yeah. No, I mean, obviously, when you've got a name like Zaha, it's not impossible that they play together. I'm not saying that necessarily, but it's just, again, what we saw from Agyemang in this 2-game set makes you really excited for what he can do in MLS. And then, of course, this is what we do as national team fans, and I think it's only right and just. We go, all right, go score 15 and get him moved to Europe and go score some goals. And maybe it would be a Josh Sargent kind of thing where it's like he ends up in the championship and we're all like, okay, you really got to bang him in the championship to impress anybody and make us feel like that's definitely going to convert to the U.S. men's national team. But maybe not. Maybe there's something else on his plate. And the thing about it is there's so many names in that pool, and yet none of them are doing enough where we are confident. Even Pepe, who scores pretty much any time he steps on the field, because he doesn't step on the field enough, we still have these doubts about it. Right? Balogun has let us down a bit. Josh Sargent can't stay fit and consistently scoring goals. Obviously, Daryl DK is just
I know a lot of people are saying Josie Altidore when they look at Agyemang, but for me,
he's leaner,
more of a thin Daryl DK. That's what I see when I see him, a leaner Daryl DK, and that's what makes me excited a little bit because unfortunately we haven't got to see Daryl DK get to the level he wanted to get to. So I'm impressed. I mean, I'm really excited to see what this kid can potentially do. The problem is we say kid, was he already 22, 23 at this point?
Who? Agyemang?
Yeah, what is he?
24 years old. Yeah, which is why whoever you saw say it is saying he might not improve technically. But here's again, we have a soft spot for a late bloomer, and give my guy some love for being an American style late bloomer. He played at Eastern Connecticut State. Yeah. Am I getting that right? JTT, can you double check me on that? I don't know if he would know.
JTT fact check.
Is it Eastern Connecticut State? I mean, he played D3 college soccer, and we're like, oh, he might be a national team guy. We might be eyeballing him for a World Cup spot.
I love it though. I mean, there's going to be teams out there that are going to want to market that as well. So I think it's okay. And here's the thing: you don't see players that size every day. You really don't. I mean, he's nimble for his size. He makes good runs. I like that. I often didn't see him with his back to goal. He was actually running at and in channels most of the time. Now, when he did get his back to goal, I think he had something to be desired. I think the ball was heavy off his foot some of those times, but I don't think that's who he thinks he is. Much like Josie. Remember, for Josie forever, you're like, well, how is this guy not playing with his back to goal more often? He developed that over time. I think he got better at it, but he wanted to be facing goal. And I think the comparison is fairly accurate when you talk about the two players.
Well, the thing that Josie had, which he does still even now in his retirement, and I know there's always going to be this, well, he didn't score enough goals against high-quality opponents. Man scored against Spain. Just going to point that out. You know, the thing about Josie is he was such a good passer with his head up facing goal that it became this thing. Again, it's almost like he wanted to be a false nine, and it obviously didn't have the body type to be a false nine. It wasn't going to work that way. You know who I'm thinking, like, maybe someone that Agyemang can kind of emulate. Have you seen Jean-Philippe Mateta play at Crystal Palace? Same size, French forward. You watch him play. If you try to catch Palace, Mateta is a big center forward who I think Agyemang could profile similarly to. So anyway, yeah.
Hey, real quick, can we pivot for the last 10 minutes to talk about one thing? I didn't talk to you about this ahead of time, but something I've been thinking about.
Oh no.
Is the women's game finally at that tipping point where the best American players need to go overseas? Because you're seeing it right now. The Germa.
Whoa, hold on.
Rumor,
You said need. You said need, and I will take issue.
I'll say that the best level of club football. If you want to play the best level of club football, you need to go to Europe because that's where the best players will be.
But that's where I think it falls apart. I do not think we can make any grand declarations about about the NWSL not being the best league or among the best leagues in the world, right?
As long as the US is relative with the players from the NWSL.
No, the quality of the play. The league is built in the American mold, which means nobody is supposed to be dramatically better than anybody else, right? They just don't want the league to stretch out so that you have 2 or 3 incredibly powerful and successful teams and everybody else is kind of trash. And that is a dynamic that is going to replicate.
That's great for the fans. That's great for the fans, but if you're a top level player, is that a good thing?
Well, okay, let me get to it. So you have France, Lyon has been dominant in France. All this Barcelona beats teams 8-0 every weekend in La Liga, in the Liga Femenina. Like, is that a good thing? Is that like maybe you're having fun scoring goals, but don't tell me that that's better. Now, what Europe has, and this is very much just like the men's game, what Europe has is culture and the Champions League. And even if the Women's Champions League is not remotely close in prestige, sort of historically, or even competition doesn't measure up the same way as the men's Champions League, I would never blame an American player, men or women, for saying like, oh, I'd like to go play in the Champions League. Like, I get that. So there's a problem geographically. The NWSL has the same problem geographically that men's leagues have. But the difference is the NWSL still is, if not the best league in the world, among the best leagues in the world, probably the best league in the world. But you're right. There is that thing too of is being in competitive matches every week more attractive than being Barcelona and beating up on everybody and going to the Champions League?
I think there's this piece here too, and JTT put it in the chat right here where he said, and she's leaving a San Diego team that's got problems. But here's my issue. If you're a female athlete in this country, particularly a soccer player, how many times do you have to watch the same men make bad decisions in this league at the highest level and be covered for and be covered for and be covered for and not held accountable before you feel this isn't the place you should be playing?
Okay, hold on. Yes. And we know San Diego's got lots of problems, and that is
Portland.
No, Jared. Culturally, the NWSL has had a lot of issues and probably still isn't clear of all of them, despite a reckoning that happened a couple years ago, right? And again, I think people will tell you that the thing about San Diego is it's not just men, right? And I don't want to pull names into it. I don't, off the top of my head, with the knowledge that I have, I can't say, I don't want to say a lot about San Diego, but I will take what people are saying in the chat, that they're an absolute dumpster fire. Fair, okay? Again, but don't come to me and say it's better in Europe. That's a bunch of garbage.
I'll tell you one of the things behind what I'm saying, what I truly mean. I think places like Portland, San Diego are a couple of these things away from potentially not existing. Chelsea's still going to exist as a club, whether an executive gets something wrong with the women's team or not. Like,
yeah, maybe
some of these teams. Look at Western New York Flash. There's teams that have folded because of this kind of stuff. And at some point, it looks Mickey Mouse, dude.
No, I know, but I think the NWSL is past that now. Just because they got a big transfer, a big franchise fee, a big expansion fee for Denver, doesn't mean that everything is super great and there's no chance of things collapsing or clubs disappearing. But I don't think that this is, oh, the NWSL is shaky and get out of here because it's a ship that's going down, or you might be worried about that. And again, so, okay, JTT is chiming in. I wouldn't be so sure Chelsea is on stable ground. And I will point out, and you know, it's kind of like this thing like, well, they haven't really tried that hard anyway, so it doesn't matter that they're not really putting effort in. But the new owner, the new controlling owner of Manchester United, Jim Ratcliffe, is on the record as saying, oh, we can't really worry about the women. We got to sort out the men's team. The women, whatever. Like, I'm paraphrasing, but it's essential. The message sent was, we don't give a shit about the women's team, right? And that's Manchester United.
Any way you cut it, though, you have two of the premier players of the women's national team choosing to go overseas right now.
Yes, and I think I don't think you should panic if they're in WSO. But I do think you should be asking some questions. Now, also keep in mind that as the game grows and becomes more popular and women in other places are getting opportunity, the NWSL, if it truly wants to be an elite league, can't be a league that's just like, oh, we got all the U.S. women's national team players. Come watch us play, which is what they did a couple years ago.
I'd be interested to know behind closed doors when Naomi Girma and Trinity Rodman are coming up to Emma Hayes and saying, I got this offer. What do you think I should do? And she's saying, what is she saying to them? I'd be interested to know, because I know publicly what she would say. Hey, everything's fine. Make the best choice. But these girls, they're talking to Emma Hayes. And obviously one is picking Chelsea, her former club. But I'd be interested to know if she is giving these players guidance to make that move.
Maybe. Who knows? I mean, Jurgen Klinsmann told men's players to leave, and Berhalter seemed to be very interested in players playing in Europe.
Sorry,
too,
JT, I talk about Trinity Rodman's rumored to go. She hasn't gone yet, but
no, I mean, yeah. She's being monitored. Let's not put cart before horse here. There's this story out that Trinity Rodman's being monitored by a couple of clubs. This is all net positive, Jared. Like, let's not get in our feelings about the NWSL's place in the world changing, not getting worse, just changing, because the world is changing. The rest of the world is changing, and the NWSL's part of that women's soccer world.
If I'm a gay soccer player, I'm going to Europe.
The only thing I would say, that's fair. That's fair. And I know Quinn has signed with a team in Canada, has said something about their experience or their concerns, right? This is out there, right? Politics are part of this, or it's not politics. It's way worse than that, but politics are part of this. What I was going to say is what I do worry a little bit about is that element of the NWSL being locked in geographically and the league finding itself unable to bring that prestige level on the club side that clubs in Europe can bring.
To attract the biggest European names to come to the U.S. You can keep developing the best American players, and that's going to keep it at a certain level. But at some point, you need to grab some of those European names, and it has to come the other way as well.
Right, and there are teams willing to spend, and that has happened a little bit, and there are some very, very, very good international players in the NWSL that the league has been aggressively going after, and they've added mechanisms, right? Maybe it's a little slow, maybe it's just like MLS. We'd like you to be more aggressive with spending and everything else. Take the shackles off and all that stuff. But there still is a push in that direction.
And to me, this is where that flip-flop occurs, is that the financial risk is way lower for the European teams to go after players and pay a certain cap. I'm saying the clubs have way more money at their disposal.
Yes, if they choose to shift that money to the women's game, then but again, you're taking the only way that works, the way you're talking about it, is that you're like a Chelsea, right? The idea would be, well, Chelsea has $800 million in revenue or whatever it is. But that's Chelsea's men's team that's generating that revenue. Right. And there is certainly an argument. This is more ideological and kind of gets deeper into like the philosophy of growing the women's game as to whether that's good if they're taking money from the pot that comes in for the Chelsea men's team and putting it into the women's team. Like, we want that investment, but ultimately you want the women's team to be its own driver, right? You want to bring its own revenue, and then they can pay players fairly and at high levels to buy Naomi Girma for $1 million pounds, dollars, whatever she went for, right? Like you want that to be a function of the women's team's success and they're standing on their own 2 feet rather than it being like we're borrowing money or we're getting a handout from the men's team, right? And in the NWSL, that dynamic doesn't really exist for the most part, right? There's no real situation where you go with a men's team is going to help fund the women's team. It's mostly women's team standing on their own, and in a couple cases, shared ownership or formerly shared ownership, that brings up a little bit more of that possibility. But I guess what I would ask here is if people in the chat, if JTT, if people who listen on the pod later think that there is any legitimate reason why the NWSL in a changing women's soccer world should be locked out of something like the Champions League. Right? The only argument is, well, UEFA governs football in Europe and NWSL is in America, and America is not a UEFA country. But if that's only just sort of artificially holding back one of the best leagues in the world.
But let's not act like distance isn't part of that as well.
No, it could be. You're right. There's a travel element that I think has to be considered. But I'm just saying, like, if that wasn't a debilitating concern,
this is also more reason for Trump to invade Greenland and make that a neutral site for all women's Champions League coverage because it's in the middle for both countries, both continents.
Yeah, just build one or a couple of big stadiums in Greenland. Yeah. Let's do that. This is JTT again. Answer to Jason about what I just said. Yell at FIFA to speed up a women's club World Cup. And I do wonder though about that, right? So,
I think that would have more value than the men's for sure.
Oh, but I agree with you. But I still wonder if there's a lot of locked-in thinking that a Club World Cup will still pale in comparison to a Champions League, even if, again, it's sort of a blank slate or a blanker slate when it comes to women's soccer than it is for men. You're basically just grabbing from the men's game and saying, well, the Champions League matters more because it matters for that much more for the men, whereas the women's game shouldn't be locked into these old ways of thinking. But we probably will. Maybe the Club World Cup becomes a much bigger deal because NWSL teams care about it and go after it and maybe win it. Maybe that is a thing. But we're not there yet, right? It hasn't happened yet. And yeah.
All right. You had the cough button. Oh, you missed the cough button. I heard it.
I don't have a cough button.
It's almost like you're not professional.
I have one on the
You're telling me you're on WNBC. Do you don't have a cough button?
No, I do on the radio box. This is not the radio box. This is the web show box. It's a different box.
Radio box?
I have a codec. You want me to explain how radio works to you?
Why don't you explain what a codec is? Not right now, though.
It's a box that allows me to connect to my studio. Yeah, you got different kinds of boxes.
Oh,
okay. All right. I know you got boxes. You got big balls? I don't know.
But my firewood is getting dropped off outside, so I got to go.
All right, there we go. That is the end of the Best Soccer Show on this Thursday. Good to have you back, man. I don't know what the future holds
we'll see.
for the Best Soccer Show, but yeah, we will check on the YouTube, check on the we'll do what we can to update you on what's going on. All right, Jared, are we done? All right, guys. Patreon.com/The Best Soccer Show. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give us a rating and review. Thank you very much, and we'll see you guys later. Bye.